So this is part 2 in our digital guide to creating a poetry essay, and here we're looking at the construction of the paragraph. Right, so the assumption is that I've already created this table and it's told me what themes, techniques and content I'm going to talk about, and now I'm going to use that table to bring it into a piece of writing. Okay, now I'm only writing one paragraph here, which is based on one of my options which I identified in the previous video. You will be writing 2 paragraphs. Okay, so follow this guide closely, but just remember you need to do it twice. Okay, so a paragraph starts with a topic sentence. There's 5 parts to a paragraph. The topic sentence focuses on telling us what the theme of the poem is. Okay, so the key things we need to identify here is, well, I have to mention the theme. If I don't say the theme in my topic sentence, I haven't done it correctly. But I also need to mention the poem, because it's the beginning of my paragraph, so it's important that I should make mention of the poet and the poem. Okay, so with those ingredients in mind, you can see the example I've created. One of the themes in Anthony Pittman's It's Like I'm Blindfolded is losing innocence. Okay, I've said what the name of the poem is, I've said who wrote it, and I've said what the theme is. Okay, so pretty easy to do. As long as I make sure I mention those 3 things, I've got a really good topic sentence. And I could have mixed that around, not a worry at all. Okay, the elaboration, now this is where a lot of people have difficulty. Okay, they get themselves confused. So let's break it down to 2 things. So there's 2 things I need to make sure I do. I have to tell my reader what the technique is. Okay, this is the time where I say that my poet uses this technique. Okay, so you'll notice the first part of my elaboration is Pittman uses the technique of metaphor to demonstrate. Okay, so if you don't mention your technique, you're not doing your elaboration right. Now's the time to bring it in. The second thing though is I actually have to elaborate on the theme. Okay, so in my topic sentence, I said that the theme was losing innocence, but what does that actually mean? Okay, what was Pittman actually trying to say? What did that, how do we interpret that? So what I've really done in the second part of my elaboration is I've just explained it. It's more specific, it gives more detail, and it really outlines what I think Pittman was trying to say, what his intended message was. So I've written, Pittman uses the technique of metaphor to demonstrate how our childhood can protect us from the world by sheltering us from responsibility. Okay, and of course I'll go on to back that up with more discussion, but I've really been more specific about what I interpret the meaning of this poem to be. So the evidence, this is where I'm starting to bring in lines from the poem to actually prove that I'm not just talking rubbish, that this actually comes from a very logical observation. Okay, so I need to use quotes, and in fact I'm being marked on how many quotes I use. Okay, in this case I'm using 2 in this paragraph, and if you look at your assessment rubric, you'll figure out what grade I would get for that. So there might be a way around that, I don't know, but just have a bit of a think about it. The evidence focuses on showing us where in the poem the technique is used and how this connects to the theme. Okay, so I need to actually show, I've said that this is about losing innocence, but I need to show where that happens. Okay, so in the poem, we read the line, I want to shed my skin so that I can become a man. All right, now you'll notice that that was the same line that I had written down in my earlier video. Okay, so I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. I already had it written down, ready to go. I now discuss it. I don't just leave the line, I actually need to discuss it and show why it's relevant. So I say, which suggests that Pittman is covered by his childhood, okay, as though surrounded by something he doesn't want. Right, now I go on to express that. He goes on to say that this cocoon doesn't have any exit signs, which suggests that he cannot escape the fact he is too young and innocent to take on the responsibilities of adulthood. Okay, so he said that he's covered up. I've shed my skin, like there's this thing around me that I want to get rid of. And I'm suggesting in my discussion here that what he's talking about is his childhood, is his innocence. Okay, this idea that, I really want to move on from being a child so that people will treat me like a man, but I don't know how. And I've suggested that that's a metaphor to say that, he feels like he needs to lose his innocence, lose his childhood in order to be accepted. all right? Now I take that idea further in my effect, okay? And this is really where, I've mentioned before, this is your moment on the dance floor where you really show your critical thinking. This section focuses on why we believe the poet wrote this and what we believe it teaches us about the world. Okay, so here I'm thinking, and I want to show that I'm thinking in a sophisticated way. Okay, I want to show what does this teach me about the world. So I'll start by saying, for the reader, we can see the frustration of the poet struggling to meet the demands of life and how he's forced to grow up too fast. Okay, so now that's a good place to start. But notice it's all about him at the moment. It's all about Pitman. So what does this teach me? So I take it further in the next sentence. He illustrates that life can be uncertain. And I'm not just saying for him now, I'm saying for everybody. We can become trapped in our own circumstances in the same way that he is trapped in his cocoon. Okay, so what I'm really saying is that this isn't necessarily about just childhood. Like an adult could be trapped in this cocoon of uncertainty, this cocoon of feeling like they don't know where they're going or what they're doing, and they need to shed this skin, or they need to shed this part of them in order to move forward. So I'm taking it to a deeper level because I'm discussing what it means to me. Now, the linking statement, the section after this, is pretty simple. Okay, what I really want to do is connect this to what this paragraph is all about. Now, the topic sentence, or I should say the essay topic, is to show the intended messages in this poem. Okay, so I think it's something like that, like what are the intended messages of this poem? Okay, so you notice that I've said here we can show how the theme, now theme is another word for intended messages, okay, we use it a lot. So here we can see how the theme of losing innocence has been featured within this text. Okay, really simple statement, but it just makes that connection to what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, it keeps it relevant, it maintains the direction of my discussion. So if I put it all together, it reads like this. One of the themes in Anthony Pitman's It's Like I'm Blindfolded is losing innocence. Pitman uses the technique of metaphor to demonstrate how our childhood can protect us from the world by sheltering us from responsibility. In the poem, we read the line, I want to shed my skin so that I can become a man, which suggests that Pitman is covered by his childhood as though surrounded by something he doesn't want. He goes on to say that this cocoon doesn't have any exit signs, which suggests that he cannot escape the fact that he is too young and innocent to take on the responsibilities of adulthood. For the reader, we can see the frustration of the poet struggling to meet the demands of life and forced to grow up too fast. Pitman illustrates that life can be uncertain and that we can become trapped in our circumstances in the same way he is trapped in his cocoon. Here we can see how the theme of losing innocence has been featured within this text. All right, so there's my final paragraph, and you notice I've got a clear 5 sections which I can identify with colours that show a deep analysis of what the poem's about. It discusses techniques, it gives examples, and it shows interpretation. Okay, so that's what you need to do as well, and you should hopefully be able to follow my steps in putting that together. Remember, you can watch this over and over again if need be. Take it a step at a time. Make sure you pause the video after each section and really focus on getting it right.